Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholes. This week, we're in China for 3 new tales from the Chinese fairy book. This first story is a story of a young man getting some rather magical powers from a rather interesting source. This is Foxfire. Once upon a time, there was a strong young farmer who came home late one evening from market. His way led him past the gardens of a wealthy gentleman in which stood a number of tall buildings. Suddenly, he saw something shining floating in the air inside the gardens, something which glowed like a ball of crystal. He was astonished and climbed the wall around the gardens, but there was not a human being in sight. All he saw was, at a distance, something which appeared to be a dog, looking up at the moon. And whenever it blew its breath out, a ball of fire came out of its mouth and rose to the moon. And whenever it drew its breath in, the ball sank down again, and it caught it in its jaws. And so it went on without a stop. Then the farmer realized that it was a fox, who was preparing the elixir of life. He hid in the grass and waited until the ball of fire came down again, at about the height of his own head. Then he stepped hastily from his hiding place, took it away, and at once swallowed it. And he could feel it glow as it passed down his throat into his stomach. When the fox saw what had happened, he grew angry. He looked furiously at the farmer, but feared his strength. For this reason he did not dare attack him, but went angrily on his way. From that time on, the farmer boy could make himself invisible, was able to see ghosts and devils, and had intercourse with the spirit world. In cases of sickness, when people lay unconscious, he could call back their souls, and if someone had committed a sin, he could plead for them. He earned much money owing to these gifts. When he reached his 50th year, he withdrew from all things and would no longer exercise his arts. One summer evening he was sitting in his courtyard enjoying the cool air. While there, he drank a number of goblets of wine and by midnight had fallen fast asleep. Suddenly, he awoke, feeling ill. It seemed as though someone were patting him on the back, and before he knew it, the ball of fire had leapt out of his throat. At once, a hand reached for it, and a voice said, "For 30 long years, you kept my treasure from me, and from a poor farmer lad you have grown to be a wealthy man. Now you have enough, and I would like to have my fireball back again." The man knew what had happened, but the fox was gone. And that is Foxfire from the Chinese fairy book, which features over 70 folktales from China. It was edited by Dr. Richard Wilhelm and published in 1921. And I really enjoy this story. It's short, it's simple. It has an impetuous farmer stealing the fire of life from a fox, making good use of it, I would say. And then eventually the fox says, "You know what, it's time for me to take this back." There's no murder, there's no retribution. He just comes back while the man is quite drunk and fetches his fire back. This is Dan Scholes for the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can also head over to Patreon if you want to support the podcast, or you can always just come back right here and listen to a new story. As always, thank you so much for listening.